It's 11 p.m. You're both in the kitchen. She just said something about your mother's last visit. Something small, something sharp. Your jaw tightens. You feel the words forming, the defense, the counterattack, the thing that will detonate everything. In this video, you'll get 4 concrete protocols that stop this moment from turning into 7 days of silent war. Most men do one of 3 things here. They argue the facts, they explain their intentions, they escalate to win the point. The cost is always the same. A 10-second comment becomes a 3-hour fight. By morning, you're sleeping in separate rooms. By day 3, you're questioning the entire relationship. Think of it like this. You're trying to put out a grease fire with water. You're making it worse while thinking you're fixing it. This isn't an emotional problem. It's not even a communication problem. It's a structural problem. You're running a nuclear reactor with no control rods. In plain language, you have no rules for how fights are supposed to work. You're missing protocols, you're missing thresholds, you're missing containment mechanisms. Without those, every small conflict becomes a system-wide meltdown. This system is called the Entropy Protocol. You're about to learn 4 specific tools that do one job: stop emotional cascade before it destroys structural integrity. These aren't tips, they're not suggestions, they're operational rules that create stability, cut multi-day conflicts down to hours, and build the kind of trust that survives pressure. If you want fewer wars and more control, keep watching. Standard advice tells you to communicate better, to see things from her perspective, to compromise and meet in the middle, to express your feelings more clearly. Here's why that fails under load. When you're flooded with adrenaline, your brain can't process nuance. Resentment filters every word she says through the worst possible interpretation. Cortisol keeps you scanning for threats, not solutions. The more you talk, the more data you generate, and none of it is clean. Communication advice assumes you're both calm, but you're not. You're physiologically incapable of the thing they're asking you to do. When arousal spikes, your prefrontal cortex goes offline. That's the part that handles logic, empathy, long-term thinking. What takes over is the amygdala, threat detection firmware. In plain English, your brain thinks you're in physical danger, not a conversation. She's not your enemy, but your nervous system doesn't know that, so you defend, attack, withdraw, all the things that make conflicts worse. The more words you add, the more noise enters the system. More noise means more entropy. More entropy means more chaos. You can't think your way out of a flooded state. You need structure. This approach doesn't ask you to do more, it asks you to do less, better. Standard advice treats conflict like a feelings workshop. This treats it like a system under load, because that's what it is. To fix a system under load, you don't guess, you install protocols. Entropy in physics is the measure of disorder in a system. High entropy means energy is dispersed, structure breaks down, and useful work becomes impossible. In relationships, entropy is unresolved resentment, compounding misunderstandings, and conflicts that never fully close. Every unfinished fight adds heat to the system. Every passive-aggressive comment increases disorder. Eventually, the relationship can't do its job: connection, trust, intimacy, because all its energy is tied up in managing chaos. Think of your relationship as a pressurized boiler. Standard advice says open the valve and let the steam out. Talk more, feel more, express everything. But if you have no pressure regulation, opening the valve just creates an explosion. The boiler cracks, the system fails. The Entropy Protocol does something different. It installs relief valves, thresholds, and containment procedures. It doesn't suppress conflict, it structures it. It doesn't avoid emotions, it regulates when and how they enter the system. The goal isn't to eliminate pressure, it's to keep pressure from destroying the infrastructure. The buffer. Its job is to prevent heat-of-the-moment entropy from entering permanent record. When you're flooded, your IQ drops by 20 points. Decision-making capacity collapses. You say things you don't mean because your threat system is online and your judgment system is offline. In plain English, you make terrible calls when you're angry, and those calls create damage that takes weeks to repair. You just got home. She's been waiting to talk about the credit card bill. You're exhausted. She opens with, "We need to talk about your spending." Your chest tightens. You feel accused. The urge is immediate. Defend yourself. List her spending.
Turn this into a scorecard fight. You know if you go there, this conversation becomes a 3-day Cold War. Here is the rule. If you feel flooded, you call a 20-minute buffer. No debate, no negotiation. You say exactly this: I want to handle this right, but I'm too activated. Give me 20 minutes to reset, then we'll continue. Then you leave the room. You don't explain, you don't defend. You enforce the boundary. Right now, write this script on a note card and put it on your phone lock screen. Practice saying it out loud 3 times before you need it. The buffer isn't avoidance, it's damage control. It keeps bad code out of the system.
The audit. Its job is to clean corrupted data before it calculates into decisions. When you're upset, your memory becomes unreliable. You recall events through a negativity bias. You conflate timelines. You remember her tone as worse than it was, and your own behavior as better than it was. In plain language, your brain rewrites history to match your current emotional state, and you start making decisions based on fiction. You're replaying last night's argument in your head. She said you never help with the kids. You're building a case, a mental list of every time you did help, every sacrifice she's forgetting. By the time you see her again, you're ready to litigate. But here's the problem. Your list is biased. You're remembering your wins and forgetting your misses. She's doing the same thing in reverse. Here is the rule. Before you bring up a recurring issue, write down 3 specific facts with dates and times. Not feelings, not interpretations, facts. On Tuesday at 7 p.m., I picked up the kids from school. On Thursday, I made dinner while you worked late. If you can't produce 3 dated facts, you don't have clean data. You have an emotion looking for evidence. Then you share the facts first, before the complaint. You say, I want to check my perception. Here's what I remember happening. Am I missing something? Start a notes file on your phone labeled Relationship Audit. Before your next disagreement, log 3 factual observations. Practice presenting them neutrally. The audit doesn't eliminate feelings. It just makes sure your decisions aren't based on distorted information. The bandwidth check. Its job is to prevent system overload by confirming capacity before adding load. Not all silence is the same. Sometimes she's processing, sometimes she's flooded, sometimes she's already at 90% capacity from work, kids, or hormonal load. If you dump a big issue onto a system that's already maxed out, it doesn't get processed, it gets rejected or corrupted. You think you're communicating, she experiences it as an attack. In plain language, if you try to talk about serious things when she's already underwater, you guarantee a blow-up. You want to talk about the vacation budget. It's important. You've been thinking about it all day. She walks in from work, throws her bag on the counter, sighs, and starts scrolling her phone. Your instinct is to launch into it. We need to figure out the trip. But her body language is screaming, I have nothing left. If you push now, she'll either shut down or snap. Either way, the conversation fails. Here is the rule. Before you initiate any high-stakes conversation, you ask one simple question. Do you have bandwidth for a real conversation, or should we schedule it? You give her the option to defer without guilt. If she says no, you set a specific time, tomorrow at 8 p.m., and you drop it completely until then. No passive-aggressive comments, no resentment. You respect the boundary you asked her to set. This week, practice asking the bandwidth question before any serious topic. Even if you think she has capacity, ask. You're training both of you to check system load before adding stress. The bandwidth check isn't delaying, it's optimizing. You're ensuring the conversation happens when it can actually succeed. The repair velocity cap. Its job is to force resolution within a defined time window so resentment doesn't compound. Unresolved conflict doesn't disappear, it accumulates. Every day you go without repair, the emotional debt grows. By day 3, you're not just fighting about the original issue, you're fighting about the 3 days of silence. In plain language, the longer you wait to fix it, the harder it gets to fix, and the more damage you do.
You had a fight on Sunday. It's now Wednesday. Neither of you has apologized. You're both waiting for the other to break. The air in the house feels toxic. You're sleeping on opposite sides of the bed. You tell yourself you're standing your ground. Really, you're letting entropy build until the relationship structure can't handle the load. Here is the rule. No conflict goes unaddressed for more than 24 hours. If you can't resolve it, you at least acknowledge it. You say, I know we're not good right now. I don't want this to sit. Can we set a time tomorrow to work through it? You don't need a full resolution in 24 hours. You need a repair signal, proof that the system isn't abandoned. These are not 4 random tricks. They're a system. The buffer preserves decision-making capacity, which makes the audit possible. The audit cleans your data, which makes the bandwidth check honest. The bandwidth check ensures conversations happen when they can actually succeed, which makes the repair velocity cap enforceable. Each protocol supports the others. Together, they create a feedback loop of de-escalation, meaning every time you use one, the system gets slightly more stable, making the next conflict slightly easier to handle. In plain terms, the more you practice these, the less you need them. This builds what engineers call operational trust, not do I love her, but does this system work under pressure? Romantic trust is about feelings. Operational trust is about reliability. You need both. You stop being a passenger in your relationship's chaos. You become the operator of a high-stakes system. These protocols will not work if your partner is addicted to chaos, seeks power through conflict, or has untreated personality pathology. If she sabotages every attempt at structure, your protocol isn't relationship management, it's exit strategy. Know the difference. This system requires discipline. You have to bite your tongue when you want to win. You have to set a timer when you want to keep talking. You have to send a repair signal when you want to punish her with silence. If you're looking for hacks that don't cost you anything, this isn't it. This is for men who understand they're operating a high-stakes system, and that system collapse has consequences they're not willing to accept. You're not here to collect tips. You're here to build architecture. You deploy protocols or you don't. You build architecture or you collapse. There's no middle path. Love is the fuel. Structure is the engine. Without structure, the fuel just burns everything down. Drop a comment right now. Which protocol are you deploying first, and which specific pattern are you targeting? Name it, make it real.